38% voter turnout in the last election. This, members of this House, is a sorry excuse of an attempt at democracy.
My substantive here, Mr. Speaker, is to show you how maximizing mandatory voting will restore legitimacy in our democracy, Mr. Speaker.
Debaters from Northern Caribbean University and the Queen's School battling against the University of Technology and Jamaica College to mark the 70th anniversary of universal adult suffrage in Jamaica. The competition was organized by the Electoral Commission of Jamaica and the Jamaican Association for Debate and Empowerment.
It is clear to us at the Electoral Commission that there has been declining interest in the electoral process. Our aim with the 70th anniversary celebrations is to rekindle that interest, especially amongst the youth.
Many new generation voters seem unaware of the struggles of our forefathers that finally culminated in adult suffrage, whereby all citizens over the age of 18 years are able to vote.
The competition was supported by Jamaica National Building Society.
We welcome the opportunity to sponsor this debate, which we hope will broaden the disclosure about this sticky issue among university and or high school students and the wider university community.
We're here today to witness the awesome power of debating as a tool for tackling the major and the important issues that we face individually and as a society.
Mandatory means authoritatively forcing somebody to go to the polls to vote. How is this right?
There was no doubt as to why this course of action is needed for our country. Nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, unsurprisingly, seeing that the opposition is the opposition had to oppose.
Mr. Speaker, if the government is willing to take away a right from us, citizens, what is stopping them from taking more rights from us?
Abstaining from voting is an equal political statement as voting, Mr. Speaker. It sends just as strong a message.
The debaters considered the motion. This House would institute mandatory voting in Jamaica.
Now, the opposition will come to us on the basis that we have a right to vote, we have a right to this and we have a right to that. But the libertarian view proposes that as an individual, you can see a baby dying in the river, and because you have an individual right to walk away, you walk away. The government is proposing that we live in a community, and as a result, whatever will benefit the community, that is what we go with. I'll accept your point of information quickly.
Isn't a lack of participation in the process as important as taking that right to participate?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I give to you that liberty governs, liberty proposes that you govern and you represent yourself, which actually aligns to the fact that if you vote, then you're representing yourself and you're governing yourself. Or are we going to mandate mandatory voting? We'll deal with an educational campaign. We will deal with the cable TV ads, the local TV ads, radio ads, print ads, etc. We will also be speaking to including civics from the primary level, so these children will grow and know the value of democracy. Mr. Speaker, we deal with mobile voting booth. So if you have an amputee grandmother living in the community, this mobile voting booth will go to her to ensure that she has a voice. We also have the none of the above section on the ballot slip, just instead of just the head or the bell. Mr. Speaker, obviously mandatory voting is important.
We now invite the Honourable Opposition Leader to respond. Hear, hear.
She spoke about the none of the above option on the ballot cards, Mr. Speaker. We posit that not going out and voting is the same thing as the none of the above option, and it does it much cheaper and less problematically, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what is the difference between not accepted? What is the difference between a right and a duty, Mr. Speaker? A duty is something that you must do, Mr. Speaker. The right is something that you may or may not do. such as freedom of speech, Mr. Speaker. The act of doing it and not doing it are equally important things, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because it is important to the individual making that choice. The status quo with improvements is what we posit today, Mr. Speaker. So what we'd have, Mr. Speaker, civic classes starting at the high school, teaching things like the importance of voting and the benefits to be had when a responsible government is chosen, Mr. Speaker. We'd also implement things like mandatory registration at high schools, Mr. Speaker. Giving persons easier access to voting will increase the numbers, Mr. Speaker, without making it mandatory.
The opposition would like for you to believe that our policy is a bad policy. What we're saying here is that if you do not vote, if you do not go to the polls, it can be for a myriad of reasons. But if you go to the polls, Mr. Speaker, and you tick none of the above, it is a clear direction that you are disinterested in the political process, that you're not satisfied with what we're offering as our government, and that we need to revamp the political system so as to maximize the full participation of our democracies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the government, the opposition again, would like for us to believe that voting should be a right rather than a duty. But at this point in time in our democracy, something is inherently wrong, and it leads to many ways for special interest groups to exploit our democracies, Mr. Speaker. What we're also ensuring that is if you do not vote, your children do not get to benefit from our education policy, our free education policy. You do not get to benefit from the full healthcare policy, Mr. Speaker, because we believe you have said to us clearly by not going to the polls that I do not want to participate in what this democracy is offering. Mr. Speaker, we do not believe in the idea that liberty is the most important thing in our democracy, Mr. Speaker. At this point, as we emphasize, when our democracy is so low, Mr. Speaker, it means that we have to move forward and do something to really restore the democracy that we believe in.
First substantive, Mr. Speaker, will be why Jamaica is not suited for mandatory voting. Mr. Speaker, the first and largest issue that rises is the garrison epidemic in Jamaica. Mr. Now we're just talking about one party or the other taking out their old people to go and vote. But what we're talking about is targeting everybody, because the politicians know that these people have to vote and they have to get them to vote for them. Paternalistic MPs can give them things, a few chickens, a nanny when election time comes, and get you to vote for them.